Very, very important part of the media buying process is really dialing in your creative. If you think about it, it's literally the first chance that people get to see or know you. So you've got to set out the right expectations, and you've got to figure out how to talk to these people. So what we've got today is put together our best ad copy frameworks that we use here in the agency. We're going to share them with you. There are 10 of them in all. We're going to talk a little bit about the general concepts, and it's essentially around copywriting. So copywriting is a skill that takes quite a lot of practice. I don't know how many of you in here. Hi, who's there? It's nice to see you.
There.
Yeah. How many of you have written copy before? If you should say yes or one or something like that, hands up. Oh, quite a few of you. Good. Excellent. Fantastic. Good. Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting because when we started 7 Mile, I said, I'm going to do it different than everybody else. We only hire media buyers who can write copy. So our copywriting team will write copy mostly for funnels, VSLs, sales pages, e-com stores, et cetera. But our media buyers have to be able to write copy because I feel it's an integral skill to be able to do media buying right. So it's good to see that lots of you have done copywriting before.
Yeah, perfect. So without further ado, let's get started, everybody. I'm going to share my screen. Let me know when you're going to see it, and put this in presentation mode. If I don't blow it up, can you see my screen okay?
Yep, can see it good.
Cool. Okay, so just to outline today's agenda, we're going to go through the 10 copywriting frameworks. We're going to share a couple of more ideas around direct response, some ad scripting around YouTube, and some Facebook examples. Now, many of you may have seen some of these already in the Digital Marketer libraries and so on. And of course, you've got access to the other courses as well. So that's going to be, this is sort of our view and complementary training for you to go through. But let's just start with the basic sort of ground rules, really. Without messaging creative, they're just so critical in a copy. Yes, the targeting is important. We're going to talk about them, obviously, in the next 2 sessions, very specifically around Facebook or everything social, and then everything on Google next Tuesday. But it's just so critical in your ads and your funnels. But you're going to be starting out when you're buying media to work towards a solid CTR. So as you may recall in the last session, we looked at the metrics, the KPIs that you need to be shooting for. And globally speaking, although there were some differences, as you saw, between YouTube and Facebook and so on, globally, you're looking at around 1% or better. That's pretty standard. And your primary inputs are going to be the work that we did together using the examples we did, which is your customer avatar worksheet, which is within the Digital Marketer library. It's a super resource, and of course the empathy mapping that we did. And I know that we had some questions which I hopefully answered to you, but we found that the empathy mapping on top of the customer, because we also do customer avatar work quite separately, but the empathy mapping exercise that we introduced last year is just really such a game changer. It's going to help you reduce the amount of time it's going to take you to write copy, because if you're not practicing, a copy can be quite difficult. And finally, just remember that test. The infamous David Ogilvy, one of my mentors, I work with Ogilvy quite extensively with different projects, and the amount of testing that Ogilvy does and the big agencies is beyond insane. And it really comes down to making sure that you build that muscle, which is the copywriting and the testing muscle in your minds. Even when you start right at the beginning, all your budgets are just going to be going towards testing. So if you've never run ads to your offer, to your funnel, then obviously all of your budget is going to go towards testing. And we can talk about budgets more specifically in the next sessions. But once your metrics all line up with your KPIs in both your ads and funnel, then you need to be thinking about putting at least 10% into testing new ads and audiences. And we're going to go through the specifics of what that looks like on our call on Thursday and the following Tuesday as well when it comes to YouTube. But essentially, just remember that test for me is always the most important thing. You're going to have an ad or maybe a few ads out of maybe, let's say, 10 ads. You'll probably find that 2 or 3 will work quite well. And the others will do kind of okay, or they'll completely bomb. And all your key metric, remember about this, is around CTRs. So those are the first ground rules I wanted to point out. They're very, very important. And just please remember this. Your testing is the most important thing that you will ever do when it comes down to media buying. So let's go through the 10 different copywriting frameworks. And I'm literally going to go through this one by one. The section in green is pretty much the strategy, just to give you an understand what it is. And then I've got an example right below. So this really just tells you where you come from. It's a little bit of the storytelling. I'm sure in marketing, you've seen the power of story. A lot of this can be used, by the way, story is very much used in like Story Brand, which I think some of you folks know about, where it talks about the hero arriving to the person who is suffering. But essentially, it's the same kind of strategy. So here's a very simple example. This is actually for an e-commerce store, would you believe it or not? We're bringing in story directly into an e-commerce product. And we'll see some other examples, and I'm sure you've all seen e-commerce type ads appearing, but this is a different approach where you're giving a reason why, in this case, having my daughter was both the greatest day of my life and the most terrifying. It was amazing because I had feelings deep in my core that I didn't know I could even have. It was pure love. Can you imagine? This is the origin of this particular seller's story, in that what motivated her to actually go ahead and create basically an organic product store. And to this day, she's doing extremely well. And you can see the pivot is occurring when she talks about the aha moment there. Like she's relating to mothers. So there's where the avatar is coming in, where mothers, new mothers particularly, just needed a simple way to solve common issues with natural and organic solutions. And we've covered the name because it's not the real name of the brand. Where they make literally all their products by hand. They make it in the UK, they ship worldwide. And do you want to sleep deeper? So they're moving into the problem and how you can boost your immune system. So you can see it's an ad which has an origin behind it. Let's have a look at the next one. Oh, got a missing there. The purpose here of the demonstration is very straightforward. You're literally going to be demonstrating your product or service with some kind of proof, okay? So again, this is another example with the same product. This is the same e-commerce store. So, hey, this is Debbie, Creative Natural Earth Organics. A couple people in our household used to struggle with sleep. So there's the problem, the agitation that's going on. And so they created a solution to it. Allows magnesium, so it's giving a little bit of education on what's going on. Remember, the goal of the ad is to get the best quality or qualified clickers possible. The goal of the ad is the start, obviously, of the conversion process, but you're calling them out directly with a problem in this case. And it's actually giving you a little bit of demonstration of why this particular product works. So it's a very simple way. You can do this with services as well, absolutely no problem. You can educate them in your ad copy, and we actually use this in YouTube as well. So you can actually demonstrate how you overcome a particular problem. So that's the demonstration approach. The third one is another sort of like sometimes controversial one, but believe it or not, the more that you agitate people that go against you, the better it is for you. You are trying to find, remember, your tribe. That's just another sort of extension of what we were talking about in the empathy mapping. Your goal here is obviously to try and you're trying to repel the people that you don't want to attract, and yet you want to attract the people that really do resonate with what you had to say. So you're trying to create that psychological bond with your tribe, so to speak. So a very simple example here. Did you know that the average American is now graduating with over 40,000 in student debt, probably more now? Total is over 1.5 trillion. And so it's really saying, why? My question is why? Because we should, Big Brother, our parents, why are we so focused on this traditional drop fund? There's so much more around for sales. So they're making the pivot away from essentially taking an us versus them strategy by pointing out that why on earth are we doing all of this? And you can just give a simple, it's just a very simple example, but again, very, very effective when you're trying to resonate with a particular tribe or crowd, which is the output of what you did in empathy mapping. Okay, next one, fourth one. It's just to show really the size of an opportunity that's right here. So here's an ad from one of our clients, does extremely well. It gets a CTR of 1.75 on average across all audiences. We have some audiences, believe it or not, doing at 2.2. But are you living paycheck to paycheck? It's time to wake up. So it's like straight up. Now, in the Facebook side of things, remember that you only have a couple of lines of text before you have to click on the show more button, which shows the rest of the copy. So it's good to call out or agitate in any copy that you're writing through these frameworks. It's a good idea to call out the audience. And we're going to go into this a little bit more detail here on this call. So last year, look at this. This is a shock and awe. A 7-year-old generated $22 million in revenue reviewing toys. A 15-year-old made $6 million by watching him play video games. Amazon had a et cetera, et cetera. So we are in the greatest area of those who want to take control of their finances. You can imagine what sort of emotion that's trying to evoke, right? You're trying to incite people with a little bit of shock and awe at the beginning here, but we're in the greatest era. This is where the pivot is occurring, where there's the call to action further below. So that's the shock and awe strategy. Here's another one we call the throwing stone strategy. It's really to call out your competitors now and create a sort of degree of separation or differentiation from what everyone else is doing. And this is just a copy that is quite a long copy. You can see here, it starts up here. And this is one that we wrote for ourselves, worked very well, got us plenty of leads, plenty of calls. I've been burnt so many agencies. So we're throwing out a common problem. We discovered this actually through our own empathy mapping exercise, okay? So we didn't just make this up. We actually came up with this because we know that so many clients of ours are coming from previous agencies or they've been seriously disappointed. So I just got off my 5th Saturday session this week where a company told me this. To be honest, I'm getting sick of it. The word has now become a joke. So we're really sort of like throwing a lot of fire into this, as you can see, because we're really trying to get their attention. You got people buying courses on how to run some ads in NetSuite. They're taking retainers from unsuspecting and they have no idea how to fulfill it. And you can see this afterwards. I'm not going to read it, obviously, from beginning to top, but here's what our worldview is. This is our offer, your offer. And they said, we're making it absolutely crystal clear that what we believe is the real agency mode, okay? The real model, the way an agency should be run. Can tell you if the offer is not converting, we got the right team members that can communicate with you, knows how to scale, has testimonials. And if you're not doing this, then stop calling yourself an agency, you're making it hard for Go and work for a few years, etc. So we're really sort of like throwing a bit of controversy into the market, if you like. It's very direct, very in your face, but it works. It's just another strategy on top of the other 4 that I've already gone through. Next one. This is very, very simple. It's just straight to the point. Tell them what you have and just give it to them. It really is that simple. So how would you like to get passive checks without renters and without becoming a midnight landlord fixing leaky toilets for needy tenants? That's exactly what our students do here at Vacation Renting Masters. The name has been changed for obvious reasons because this is one of our clients. It's another ad that has got on average, get this, of 1.6% click-through rate. And believe you me, we've tested all of these frameworks. And in this particular client, this is the one that worked the best for us. And it's across different audiences as well. So we've gotten 1.6 on this one, and it's worked absolutely fine. Notice just a little PS here. We've got RE. That stands for real estate, as you might imagine. Well, within Facebook, there are these special ad categories that we like to keep out of. We'll talk about that, but that's just a little copy trick where we try to keep out of the approval bots from Facebook. So again, direct, straight up strategy, very, very straightforward. It literally just, you don't have to sort of spin your wheels. You don't have to spend like spending 3 minutes to read a copy. This is pretty much straightforward and straight to the point. Next one, very simple one, pop quiz. This gets them thinking, right? And without too much strain on the brain, shall we say. So which investment checks all these boxes? Passive income, cash flow every year, doesn't require. Click this link to learn. So you can see that we're adding a bit of a mystery here where we're actually inciting. Some would say it's clickbait, but it's not. We're actually sending this to a funnel which contains a quiz, believe it or not. So it's actually quite funny that this ad lined up with a quiz funnel as well. So it's just another approach where you get somebody that is interesting, which investment. So again, we're making it very clear that it's for people interested in investing. Okay, that's the pop quiz one. Going through this very quickly. Here's another really good one. This single ad, folks, has been responsible for bringing in $800,000 per month in not in recurring revenue, but in new sales. 800,000 shortly to become about $1 million a month. It's a person who's a consultant in the IT business, in the cybersecurity business. And this copy was written by one of our campaign managers. It's an awesome piece of copy. It converts like crazy because we actually map this. It doesn't actually, interestingly, always get the highest click-through rate across different audiences. But what it does do is give us the highest ROAS, because remember, when you're using tools like Segmetrics, you can find out which individual piece of copy is actually driving the greatest amount of revenue, which is why when we were talking about tracking last week, it's such a good idea to understand where your revenue is coming from, and it will come from an ad. But this single piece of copy has been responsible for $800,000. So it just goes to show how important copy is, right?
That's per month, by the way.
Yeah, per month. Yeah, exactly. So it's you are talking to your people. You're talking to your tribe. Are you an IT professional looking to achieve more than what your current job is giving you? Okay, so these are IT support people. They're just like answering tickets. They're answering tickets from people that don't know how to plug in a computer and that sort of thing. And they're getting sick and tired of getting 30,000 in a dead end job. All right. So he struggled. He wanted to achieve more. He wanted to earn more, and he wanted to support his family. Okay. How many training? And he said, it doesn't matter how many training certificates I earned. I couldn't turn the corner towards a better future. I remember the pain, applying to hundreds of jobs with no response. I want to propel my career forward. And you can get the whole feel of how this is resonating with someone. So this is, again, just another extension of why the empathy map is just so important. This particular client really knows his avatar inside out, because he's been that person. And maybe that's been you too. And if you've not been able to find out, if you're offering something, for example, and you haven't been through the pain or the want or the desire, etc., you can do a lot of research in this. I'm not sure if we mentioned this in a previous session, but you look at, for example, look at the reviews, or look at the reviews that come from Amazon. For example, you look up a book on the topic, read the reviews. You're going to learn a lot from that if you don't have direct experience, like in this particular case, where this gentleman has become a security consultant. Yeah, he's doing very well out of it, as we just said. So another one is called the getting results strategy. So it's very much how to type of things. It's very much how to copy, how I generate multiple 7 figures per year using free YouTube traffic. Hi, my name is Janet Smith, and I've been helping people just like you for over a decade. This year, I'm taking things to a whole new level because frankly, I'm tired of watching good people get advice. There's the empathy part in the copy that's going on there. It seems like every week there's a new guru pitching their cutting edge advice when they've barely built their own business. And then she cuts immediately, this particular lady, she cuts another one of our clients, also doing roughly 500, I think Aaron now 600K, is she not, per month?
Yeah, she's about 600,000 on paid and 500,000 organically.
Right. So she's doing extremely well. And this is, again, the leading copy in her particular case. And she's given a little bit of education on, here's the best part. I perfected a 4-step system. Properly package, zone in your niche, clarify your story, and scale your brand. I also say that I'd be their authentic selves. There's more output from her empathy mapping core. It took us a little while to figure out the word authentic selves. That wasn't a 5-minute job, but it emerged after about an hour and a half of the empathy mapping core. And it further was what she thrives on. So it was like a mix between her perfect world and how she can actually help clients. So again, this is about the getting results strategy, but you can see elements of empathy creeping into this copy in quite a few different places. Okay. Very similar to the getting results is just the credibility. Ad strategy. So attention, aspiring online marketers, coaches, and consultants. There's a lot of people in this space, as you can imagine. It's the same client. It's just reformatted in a more direct style by getting more credibility up front into the copy. But look at this word over here. I help my clients increase their visibility and capitalize on their you-ness. It's not even an English word. So don't be afraid to use things that make sense. Remember, copy is almost like talking to a friend. It shouldn't be formal. It should be very straight and concise and straight to the point. It does take some practice, but remember that you've got to be entering, as the famous copywriter said, you need to be entering the conversation that's going on in the client's head. So a couple of more things I wanted to share with you, and then we're going to stop and take some questions. And if we have time, I'm sure we could actually help someone out with something. We'll see how we do with time. So a few more strategies. This is more about calling out to the audience. Now, one of the things we're going to be talking about in the next 2 sessions, that sometimes your targeting is not very clear. In Facebook, can you find people that do, what was the example that Kern used to use? Can you find, is there a target audience for underwater basket weavers? No, there's no such thing. You can't target people like that. So it's very important to ensure, even as a backup strategy to the targeting you're going to be using, which we'll talk about on Thursday and Tuesday, is that you call the audiences out in your copy directly, okay? So, for example, true or false, I can protect my family's wealth from inflation. Again, there's the mystery sort of angle. Free training, how to build lifestyle and financial freedom, investing in vacation homes. Beat inflation and have fun at the same time. So again, it's calling out like how to build a lifestyle, financial freedom, investing in vacation homes. It's very clearly orientated towards people that are interested in real estate investing, right? But it's got this particular offer is something completely different. It's related to vacation homes. So don't forget that this is a nice pattern interrupt. Look at this. I mean, there used to be a time where Facebook had this 80% rule where you couldn't have more than 20% text within the image. 80-20 side of rule they had, that's gone. So now you can literally, don't forget that when you are in Facebook, which is a kind of like almost schizophrenic type of platform. People are whizzing through their timelines very quickly. What you need to do, or through their feeds, I should say, what you need to do, your goal of your ad is to stop them in their tracks. You've got to get their attention. And we'll talk about this more specifically on Thursday when we come to the Facebook side of things. But you've got to stop them in their midst by actually doing a pattern interrupt. And this is a very clear pattern up front. It's completely, the color is completely contrasting with whatever the Facebook interface looks like, right? Here's another couple of examples. Very straightforward, literally calling out the audiences. Plumbers don't know how to determine your hourly rate. Pretty clear, right? You're just calling out the audience. So simple statements work very well. Here's another one, which is in the weight loss industry. Run down, low energy, stressed, get the health first path to weight release. Very straightforward, nothing fancy pants about it at all. No Hollywood videos. It's just straight up, simple statements where you're calling out the audience. In this case, these are examples directly in Facebook, because you can achieve exactly the same effect in YouTube by using B-roll, appropriate B-roll, quite early on. Does everyone know what B-roll is? Just say yes in the yes if you know B-roll. If not, we can answer afterwards. So yeah, B-roll, you can make sure that you actually obviously choose the appropriate B-roll, but you can introduce that quite early on into your, it's just essentially some stock footage that relates to the actual avatar and the person you're targeting. So with that said, I want to talk a little bit about YouTube. This is a framework that's been around forever. It works. There are other frameworks out there, but this one is what we would say is the bread and butter of YouTube ads, in our opinion. It works across multiple niches. We've got it in the finance niche, we've got it in real estate, we've got it in lots of different niches. So YouTube is a slightly different animal. And I'm going to explain, for those of you who've never run YouTube ads, you've obviously got a headline, you've got a call to action here, there's your headline. You don't have a lot of space for this, but that's obviously what it looks like on desktop. But the YouTube scripting uses exactly the same approaches that we've already talked about in the frameworks, okay? Now, it's called the most annoying 5 seconds on the internet, right? You've got that ad that you really don't want to come up. So you've got essentially about 5 to 10 seconds to really get your hook in place. What is a hook? It's literally the question that you need to be asking them in order to make sure it relates to their particular interest, okay, to whatever you're targeting. So it's very important. And when we onboard clients, we actually develop 5 different hooks. And they may be different hooks with slightly different angles in each one. For example, if in your weight loss, you might say, for example, if your avatar, let's say, is in weight loss and you're over 50 and you're female, and, you know, let's say that's the market. Have you ever found that, you know, you might start with this, are you tired of on fad diets? That's the typical sort of hook that many people use, but it might be something completely different, which could be related to, do you believe that menopause could be affecting your weight loss efforts?
Or something psychological. Are you tired of walking into your closet and looking at your favorite black dress, not knowing when you're ever going to be able to wear it again?
Exactly. Yeah. Very emotional stuff is very, very powerful. No doubt about it. And the more emotion you involve, the better it is, definitely. Education. So this is where you can have anything as short as, typically we don't go less than 60 seconds, but we tends to be on average for 60 to 90 seconds. So you're going to introduce, you're going to hook them in, and the goal of the hook is to keep them watching the video. So that's the goal, because one of the most important metrics, which we talked about on the last session, is your view rate, which should be at around the 20% mark on average. Now, we'll talk about that again next week on Tuesday, a little bit more detail when it comes to YouTube, but your goal here, the goal of the hook is to keep them watching. It's not necessarily to get them click. The goal of the hook is to keep them watching, because the longer that someone engages with your video, generally speaking, your cost per acquisition will go down quite substantially. So there is a direct correlation between the view rate and your cost per acquisition. And it's fairly linear, I would say, but the longer they watch, the better quality that you're going to have. So the goal of the hook is to keep them watching, okay? And the education piece is just literally what it is. It's literally, as the word says, it's educate them. You're going to give them some tips. Tip number one, for example, with the example you just gave there, Aaron, would be, for example, first of all, you don't have to beat yourself up about it. The worst thing you can do, and that can hamper your weight loss efforts, is to constantly beat yourself up. Tip number two might be something else. Tip number three might be something else. And typically we wouldn't go more than three, but essentially you've got to really try to get them to engage. And this is when you can use B-roll. So B-roll is stock footage that you can insert, because people's attention span is very low. So to keep the attention span going into a YouTube ad, typically we'll introduce B-roll within about 15-second or even longer intervals, okay? So again, that's the education section. Now, when they come to that, then you're going to pivot to essentially your offer, which is the offer that you're going to have on your landing page. Well, it doesn't have to be this way. In fact, I put together a short 10-minute training, which is only available through this ad. Please click on the link, which leaves you to the next section, which is literally just call to action. So yes, you have to say, click on the link around this video. If you've got a different script at the end, if you're running on mobile, then you have to say, click below, or if you're on a desktop, click towards the right-hand side, etc., etc. So you can just use one standard CTA, that's fine. Typically what we'll do is that we'll develop 5 or so different hooks before we actually start running traffic, okay? Again, where does all of this information come from? It comes from the customer avatar worksheet, and it comes from the empathy mapping. So a lot of the hooks will come out naturally from your empathy mapping call. But the goal of the education, and then what we'll do is we'll have 5 different pieces put together and filmed, okay, by the client themselves. And there's different ways. I think someone asked, I can't remember who it was, that was asking in the Slack channel about how to get around customers that don't want to be on camera. We can talk about that again next week when we cover YouTube and Google on Tuesday. But essentially, we put 5 different hooks. So you're going to have hook number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And you're literally going to bolt each one on to one single education section and one single call to action. So essentially, you have 5 different hooks. You're going to end up with 5 different video ads. The education and call to action piece is going to be the same. It's just the introduction or the hook that's going to be different, okay? And I think the next section is just some examples, but perhaps this would be a good time for me to pause and ask if there are any questions at this juncture. I'm going to get myself back on camera here. And I think it's a good opportunity to ask. I've gone through this very quickly, but I'm sure you have some questions, and we can even do a little bit of workshopping because we've got plenty of time.
Yeah, and what we wanted to do today was just talk you through some of the frameworks, because part of our launching SOP is that our media buyers have to go in and take 5 of the frameworks and write 5 different versions, one for each of the 5 frameworks that they've taken, and coming on here and saying, hey, here's 5 different frameworks and talking you through how they work, we didn't think would be as valuable to you as actually showing you 5 to 10 examples of the frameworks that you can then go take, copy, leverage, deploy. And the reason why we take so many to start is we just don't know what the audience is typically going to respond to best. Yeah. So to start with one, you're really putting all eggs in one basket versus starting with many, gives you a lot more ammunition to test out with your marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yep. Well, we've got some questions coming in here. Let's have a look at the question box here. Okay, we're going to start with Lauren. So, question. Would love to know the frameworks within your funnel building, which tend to work best with Mofu, Tofu, Bofu, etc. Or maybe we've already answered this. Okay, so within the context, I'm not sure, Lauren, whether you mean with the actual ads themselves or within the funnel itself. Does that make sense? I'm not sure.
When you're choosing which, sorry, Annie was talking about how Aaron was talking about how when a media buyer writes a copy, you have them choose 5 frameworks. Do you identify where they are in the funnel and which framework specifically, or do you have frameworks?
That's a great question. It's a real simple answer to this question. The frameworks that we're showing to you today are our bottom of funnel direct response. We want them to take the action frameworks. If you look at the manufacturing fame content mapping strategy, that's a little bit different because we'll do seed language, we'll do content, we'll do call to action, but we're really building awareness in the top of funnel or the middle of funnel. These are our cold / retargeted from top of funnel, middle of funnel to direct response ads to get them to take an action. So this is bottom of funnel for us. These are our hot prospects or going into the market cold because an example in Facebook, right? We taught the manufacturing fame strategy. We put that into play right away, but we don't wait for everybody to make it all the way through from top to middle to bottom. We will launch our cold right to our target audiences at the same time because we want to get some traction into the account immediately. And then obviously the additional benefit is over time as they come through top, middle, and hit the bottom, then we're getting an even cheaper CPA. Does that answer your question? Awesome.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. What else have we got here? I'm sure we've got more questions.
We have Nicholas who says, for your ecom clients, do you guys ever use Amazon reviews to come up with customer pain points and use them in your copies?
Absolutely.
I came across a Facebook post that I can't find anywhere where the person was having people compile them in a spreadsheet, use word cloud tools to analyze the common occurring words. Have you guys seen or used this strategy before? I'm thinking about doing this for my marketing research to know the market better so we can come up with better copy.
Yeah, we absolutely do. We use these frameworks, but then in combination with our empathy mapping, we will usually do a couple of different things. One, we'll go look at Amazon reviews. 2, we'll try to find Facebook groups where potentially that client has that avatar in that group, because Facebook groups are an amazing place to go and read about what people want and what people hate. Right. So that's another fantastic tool to leverage for copy variations. And then in many cases, what we'll also do is we'll actually email our list of buyers. Right. So we'll offer to give them something to complete a survey, and we'll ask them questions like, what was your biggest concern before you bought the product? What were the things that surprised you when you bought the product that you didn't know you would love, but you love? What are the things that you think we could do to improve the product? And we'll actually take the survey answers and leverage them into our marketing. So that's 3 different ways that you can collect data, in addition to obviously doing your empathy mapping and so on and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. And folks, this is not a 5-minute exercise. Even our more experienced media buyers will probably take to put 5 different pieces of copy with using 5 different frameworks. They're going to take a good few hours, okay? And whilst they flesh it out. So, but it's worth every penny, because you will save a tremendous amount of pain and time and money on media. You've probably noticed a big trend that we haven't actually even gone into an ad account yet. We haven't even seen anything, and yet we're sort of like going towards the halfway mark in this media buying boot camp. And you're probably sort of surprised to see that we're spending so much time around strategy, avatar, research, all the research and so on and so forth. But we just know from it, not only Aaron's and I's experience, and I've seen it not only in 7 Mile, I've seen it in other ad agencies that are very, very successful. with their media buying efforts. And it really comes down to preparation. I mean, when you, for example, you've done a refurbishment in your house, you know probably that the decoration piece, the painting on the wall, takes like half a day, but the contractors are there for like what feels like 3,000 light years, still building and putting the struts up in place, right? It's the same approach. By what I mean is that all that preparation and all that work and all that effort that you're going to be putting in just pays off in spades. Whether you're running this as a service or you're running this for your own product, trust me, you're going to save thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars by doing these difficult things, or sometimes what look like boring things.
Yeah. And somebody just said, I get pressured to launch quickly all the time. Yeah. It's a balancing act between launching quickly and doing things right. You have to kind of set expectations with the employer or the client ahead of time. This is our onboarding research creative process. You know, the average client that comes on for us, we tell them we're not even running ads for 3 to 4 weeks. Yeah. Don't expect it. We have to do all of our research. We have to do all of our creative approvals, tracking audits, everything. And they go, well, could we do it faster? And my answer is always, well, what would you like me to leave out? And they're like, oh, well, nothing. Okay, then we're going to do it the right way then. Right. And the difference is that we can typically get to our model numbers in the first 30 days versus 6 months. Right. So, you know, I don't like testing with other people's money because they'll leave. Right. So we do our research and we prepare ahead of time, and that cuts down on the testing time. One of the things that you and I didn't talk about, Andy, before this, but I think it's a really valuable tool that I want to share with people. So I'm going to share my screen just real quick. This is one of the simplest tools in the world that is hugely valuable when you're testing copy. It's a free app called HemingwayApp.com. Yeah. And you'll see that they have described their own app in this middle piece, and you can change any of the words whenever you want and add, you know, you could change it. And the whole point is that you can go in and you can you can delete all of this and write your own copy. And what it does is it scores your readability on the right. And you can see it's scored it here at grade 6. And then it's explained what the potential challenges are, right? You can see the sentence up at the top. It's saying 1 of 11 sentences is hard to read, right? It's saying one phrase has a similar or a simpler alternative in utilize. You know, 2 adverbs right here, meeting the goal of 2 or fewer. So they don't want more than 2 adverbs. You know, 1 of 11 sentences is very hard to read. This is this one right here. And you can copy and paste any copy that you want into here. Just delete this and copy and paste yours in, and it will tell you how to make it easier to read. And your goal is to get it to a grade 4 level. So what we have found in our testing is that if we can get our copy to a grade 4 level, that's why Andy was talking about conversational earlier, then that's our highest converting copy. And in many cases, when we're working with clients, they want to get really verbose. They want to get very industry specific in their vernacular. They want to sound smarter than they actually are. And it has detrimental effects to the efficiency in their conversions. So we try and get it to a grade 4 level as much as we can. And it's a free tool. Just go to HemingwayApp.com. You don't have to sign in for it. We use it all the time. And grade 4 will dramatically outperform anything else that you put up. Yeah.
Absolutely. Keep it absolutely as simple as you can. And that app, that's a good one. I'll probably add it to the presentation deck afterwards, actually. So you've got it there as well. Yeah. I think are there more questions? I'm sure there are.
Yeah.
Hold on. I'm just trying to scroll up.
We have a comment or question from Pratesh asking about, does a YouTube ad with me educating with a whiteboard be a good idea without a B-roll?
Yep, absolutely. That's absolutely fine. All I'm suggesting is that when you're trying to, for example, not that the whole 2 minutes is on you on the whiteboard, you can intersperse it with a very brief illustrative B-roll piece of footage. So remember the goal of copy, and how many of you have heard of Joe Sugarman? He uses what's known as the grease slide approach. So a YouTube ad is very much like that grease slide. What you're trying to do, the goal of, like on a sales page, the goal of a sales page is, yes, you've got the sort of mechanical stuff like you've got like elements like bullet points, you've got headlines, you've got et cetera, et cetera. And we're going to look at some examples shortly. But when the grease slide approach is to get, the goal of the headline is to get them to read the subheadline. The goal of the subheadline is to read the opening paragraph. After the opening paragraph, the goal is to get them to read this. And the goal is to keep getting them to read from the next table. The video is very much the same. It's getting them to keep their attention. So a long-winded answer, I know, but yes, whiteboards will work. And B, I would add some B-roll in there. So, but yes, you don't have to go over the top, right? Now, I would test it anyway, Pritesh. So you have one which is all you. What often is very good on YouTube on whiteboard videos is you actually have two cameras. So you have one which is you on the front, and then you can also do what's known as zoom in. So if you've got the right angle, and as long as you've got the mic plugged into the phone, either or wireless phone, or you got wireless mic, and then you have another angle, and you have another camera, another smartphone, for example, on another angle. And then what you do is you swap between the angles. So you've got them on the front, and then you've got them on the side. And they're just little psychological tricks. If you watch, for example, I don't know, a documentary on a TV, you'll notice they won't use any fancy slides, transitions. They actually do straight cuts. In an editor, they often do straight cuts to long shot, to long shot, to short shot. So a good practice for that, Ritesh, would be just test it. It's no extra. You're going to film the whole thing with you in front of the camera, and then you're going to have perhaps another camera at a different angle. Make sure all the lighting is there. Best to shoot in daylight, by the way. And then what you can do is you can cut that video in different ways. And you'll be surprised that sometimes without B-roll, it will work better. It really depends on how engaging your script is and how good the education piece is. Like all good copy, the goal is, remember folks, the goal is on the initial phase is to get the best CTR. That normally is there is a direct correlation, for example, on view rates in YouTube and the CPA. The longer they consume your content, the better the quality, and generally speaking, the better the CPA, which is why we try to get view rates of 20, 25 and above. And there are other types of videos that allow you to do that, which are much more involved. We call them the explainer videos, which require animation, and they can be quite expensive. Can cost up to $200-300 to put them together. So I don't recommend starting that. We'll talk about this more next week on YouTube anyway, so I'll be repeating this a little bit. So that's a long-winded answer to your question, Pritesh.
We have a question from Victoria who says, have you seen a particular framework that works best for VSL for consultants who are targeting coaches/consultants?
So particular framework within the ad, you mean? Is that what you mean, Victoria? Is Victoria?
And what channel are you talking about in specifically?
Yeah.
Well, yes, I am speaking about the ads for the VSL funnel.
Okay.
And I would be starting with Facebook.
Okay. If you go back to the two that we talked about earlier, which is I think you renamed her Janet Smith, Andy.
Yeah.
Janet Smith's copy is crushing, and she's marketing to people who have a skill to encourage them to create a course around it and market it on YouTube. So I'd say, I would test all of them. That's why we put so many in there, but that would be a great start.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So
Cool.
Lauren, oh, sorry.
That's all right. Yeah, fine.
Yeah. So Lauren is asking, launching with 5 frameworks times 5 versions,
Mm-hmm.
what budget minimum are you expecting? I remember you referencing a $150 to $250 a day budget. Wonder what thresholds you have with budget limitations for algorithmic success.
Yep. So that's right, Lauren. Generally speaking, the budget question, I was thinking of actually including it in today's presentation, but I decided to move it until the actual specific sessions that we have on Facebook or social ads and then on YouTube ads. Okay. But You can launch with, I would launch with a minimum. So if you don't have that budget, Lauren, you don't have to. Okay, you need to make, you need at least 3. In our experience, to make this work, we need 3. So if you can't launch with 5, that's fine. It's not a problem. You can launch with 3 ads, for example, in YouTube. You can launch with 3 different ads in Facebook. That's more than enough to get the ball rolling. What is not what we're trying to obviously drill into everybody is to make sure that you don't launch with 1 ad. You need to have a few more, okay? Because if you launch with 1 and then you say, oh, my ads sucked and they don't work anymore, then yes, you're going to be really hacked off, okay? So with regards to budgets, I'll answer briefly the question now. In Facebook, generally speaking, we like to start with a minimum of $50 to $100 at a national level, no less though. Because if you're going just on a state, so if you're advertising something for, which is just a statewide thing, then yes, you can probably go down to $25, $50 a day. In YouTube, it tends to be a little higher because the audiences tend to be bigger. So we like to go for about $300 a day if you can on YouTube. But if you can't, then we look towards the $75 to $100 mark. In Europe, it would be less because the cost per clicks are much less. The US just happens to be the most competitive market in the world. No surprise to most of you, I'm sure. So those are the kind of budgets that we're looking at. But Lauren, if you're getting stuck, don't get stuck on that. I would rather you reduce your budget and go down to 3, for example.
And the whole budget question is probably, and this is no offense to Lauren for asking it, it's probably my least favorite question. And it's because it's a chicken and the egg scenario, right? If you have a small budget, it takes you a long time to get an answer, but it is what it is. It's just going to take a long time to get an answer, right? You're going to need, at least 100 impressions, on whatever thing you're looking at, your ad, your lander, your checkout page, your purchase page. It's just going to extend how long that goes, right? The more budget you have, the faster you can acquire data. But I understand if it's your business and you don't have the cash, well, then you just have to wait longer with your tests to get your results. If you have lots of cash, you get them faster, right? If you have a client who has no money, you have to set expectations of this is how long it's going to take because of your budget. If you put more budget in, we're going to be able to get the answers faster, right? So it's one of those questions that I hate, but I understand where they come from, right? It's chicken and the egg, right? Like we want more so we can get the answers faster, but if we don't have it, then we're going to get them slower, right? It is what it is, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Does that help, Lauren?
I'm sorry.
That was Lauren's question, wasn't it? Yes.
Yes, yes.
Does that answer your question, Lauren?
Can I ask a follow-up?
Sure.
Jump someone's line.
Sure.
What is that statistical significance of when you've got, whether it's an accelerated budget? Because we do have clients that want us to do less than $100 a day, which is really hard.
Really hard, yeah.
And that's, just thinking of all the copy and stuff that you've that's work. Those are days, and that's awesome.
Yep.
So in terms of if you want to set yourself up for success, which is why you're paying an agency, you're not cheap. Where is your statistical significance cutoff? Be it long-term, letting this little hatchling take its time, or an aggressive, let's get some data. And
well, there's 2 answers to the question. One, when you have a big budget, you can play the real statistical significance much easier, right? Andy would probably say coming from I know we would say, because I've already heard him say it from, with British Airways or Spanish Football League or Heineken, no less than 1,000 impressions on whatever thing they're looking at, right? I would say no less than 100 if you've got a small budget. And then I would also say asterisks. I will go crazy and launch something in a Facebook, for example, and I will literally turn it off if I don't get the click I want by the dollar I want amount. So I will launch 100 ad sets at a $10 a day budget, and I will watch and see if they don't get a click by $3. And if they don't get a click by $3, I'll kill them right on the spot, and I'll give it no time to mature. And at the end of the day, if I launched 100 ad sets, I might have 10 left, but I've killed them all at the $3 or less budget. So I haven't spent through an enormous amount of budget. I've just done what I call day trading, which is lightning testing
Yeah.
And I know that I'm losing some potential winners by killing stuff really quickly. I'm aware of that, but I also know I'm getting to an answer much faster using that methodology, right? So statistical significance really is 1,000, 100 is acceptable, or you just go ham and you kill stuff real quick, so you don't blow through a budget and you survive off of what's left that has shown that it can clearly meet the metrics that you want. So it's not an easy answer to the question, but it's how we sort of look at things.
So Lauren, yeah, and to add to that, it's essentially, there's different levels of statistical significance. One would say 95%, one would say 98%, just to eliminate the fact that chance is no longer in the equation. Ultimately, it's going to be a bit of a balancing act, compromise. So what you're looking for is, opposed to statistical, you're looking for probability. And if you remember, for example, in Facebook, the system will stop optimizing after 8,000 impressions. Okay, it just will not. Facebook will not attempt to find more improvements within its algorithm. So I take the view that with 1,500 impressions, it's more than enough for me to say that the probability, because our experience is that the probability of an ad improving in the Facebook environment after about 1,500 impressions is small, but it's certainly possible. As Aaron pointed out, we may lose out on that opportunity, but it's a risk. It's what we accept, what we believe is acceptable. If you want to go for sort of like the pure mathematical 95% significance model, then that requires, a minimum of 1,000 or more impressions to actually reach that. And then statistical significance is actually a mathematical calculation, but there are all sorts of effects that are coming in. You might have seasonal effects, you might have news effects, you might have weather effects, you might have a whole bunch of effects that really sort of affect that sort of the dry statistics in its purest form. So ultimately, it comes down to a compromise. If you've got clients that are doing, for example, $50 a day, $75 a day, you just have to educate them on what the limitations, and it's not a limitation that you're placing, it's a limitation on how the advertising algorithms and systems work. It's not you or any other agency. It doesn't matter which agency they go to. The fact of the life is that's the way Facebook works. You don't like it, call Mark Zuckerberg. What do you want me to do? Or call Sergey Brin. Tell him it's his fault.
And this is where, this is not what we're talking about today, but it should be really helpful for you guys. It doesn't matter if you're working for somebody else or you're working for a client or you're starting your own thing, right? You have to clearly outline expectations based on the situation that you've been given from the get-go, right? We tell our clients it's 3 to 4 weeks to set up. It's a month of testing to make our tests match the model. And then we can look at scaling in month 3 and month 4. And our clients go, oh my God, I'm going to spend that much money with you to get to it's going to take me 3 months to get to money. Yes, you are. That's the answer, right? If you don't like it, go find somebody cheaper, right? And it'll take you 8 months to get there and you'll spend more and you'll pull more hair out, right? Like you have to set the expectations with your employer, your client, even yourself, right? Like we all put so much pressure on ourselves and we try to get to the end result, faster than is theoretically reasonable, right? Setting expectations as a media buyer is probably more important than anything that you'll learn inside of this cohort, because if you set expectations that are unrealistic with your client or your employer, it doesn't matter how good of a job you do, you're always going to look incompetent, right? And it's a tough conversation to have, right? To set those expectations and go, well, sir or miss, based on your budget, it's going to take us 6.5 months to get a result. What? Well, this is your budget. Like, what do you want me to do? Right? So either go find me more budget or this is what it's going to take.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we have from Natalie. She says, does that view rate for YouTube also work for Facebook CPA?
No. Okay, so the video consumption, we don't again, so you're talking about Facebook ads, right? On YouTube ads, we don't look at we do observe the consumption rate when we've tested different ads. So if we've got video ad number 1, 2, and 3 in a Facebook ad, we will certainly flip between different parameters. Either we set it up in the custom columns, and we look for at least something around, it's optimized for TrueView, if I remember correctly, but we're looking for somewhere around a good solid number around the 25% mark. So, you can switch in Facebook ads to video engagement on your columns. And then we set up custom columns as well, which look at the primary metrics we'll talk about more on Thursday. But we will look at the video ads, and we will find, ultimately our goal is CTR. We care about, the CTR has a higher weighting than the view rate. The view rate has an impact on quality, but the CTR is still the number one metric that we're looking at when we're doing those first 30 days of testing. Once everything's up and running, once we've got the ad copy approved with our clients, in our case, once we've got all the creative sorted out, which is the ad or the video, sorry, the image or the video, all of that is approved. The first 30 days, we're shooting for, as quickly as possible, good CTRs.
And cost per clicks.
And cost per clicks, exactly what we talked about on the model on Tuesday. So those top metrics that you have in the models, which were sent over the weekend, you will find that those are the ones we're looking for above everything else. On the video consumption, the nearest equivalent would be to go to video and then choose from there. But it would be a less influential metric. Your goal is to get as many good quality clicks into your funnel as quickly as possible within the constraints of the budget that you have.
And I want to, there's two things in here that I want to address, and then I want to move on to the next section.
Yeah.
Number one, I'm looking at Mandy's comment. It's truly ridiculous just starting with a new client who's panicking about an event that's not selling and it's on fire, panic, et cetera, et cetera. This is what I mean by setting expectations and protecting your energy. Last year, the Dalai Lama's group was introduced to me to market their event, and they wanted to sell the event and start it in 30 days. And I said to them, are you insane? Right. And they said, no, it's the Dalai Lama and this person. Do you want to do it? I said, absolutely not. And they said, you want to turn down working with the Dalai Lama? I said, no, I don't. I just don't want to set myself up for failure and then have the Dalai Lama's group thinking I'm incompetent. If you want to launch an event with me, I need at least 30 days setup and 90 days marketing to ensure that we hit the goals that you want. So the answer is no. I said, if you want to move the event out 4 months, I'm happy to take it on, right? But you have to be strong enough to understand what's realistic and set expectations with your client to not shoot yourself in the foot, right? And people said to me, you really turned down the Dalai Lama? Absolutely, right? If the expectations don't line up with reality, don't do it, right? All you're going to do is abuse your own relationship, right? So the second thing is that Robert Lee is saying, obviously, you guys do a ton of this, but who do you look at as good examples to review that showcases some examples of copy that you like and maybe emulate inside your team? That's exactly what we're going to show you next. And we're going to put a challenge on the table for you. So one of the things that, how we got the copy frameworks, right, is we looked at all of our clients who had the best performing pieces of copy financially, and then we siloed them into labels, as you saw, right? The us versus them, the throwing stones, et cetera, et cetera. And then we started to emulate those within our other clients, and they just became, steadfast stalwarts in what we do, right? But one of the things is like, Robert, like you were saying, like, how do I cut the corner on, some people call it funnel hacking, emulating, modeling, whatever you want to call it, stuff that already works. So what I did is I created something called a unicorn ad library, and we're going to show you some examples of unicorn ads. Now, how we develop the unicorn ad library is shockingly simple. And you guys are going to laugh when I tell you this, because you're going to go, oh my God, why have I not done this before? Right? So I asked the whole team to find me unicorn ads that would just show up in their Facebook feeds and screenshot them and put them in a folder for me. And then I had an admin break out the copy, break out the video link, break out the whatever, so that it would be easy to consume. Because you are being targeted with ads all the time. You are marketers. You get targeted with ads because you look at stuff, right? So in your feeds in Facebook and Instagram, right, you can see right away what we call unicorn ads. So a unicorn ad in our mind is an ad that has more shares than comments. If you have more shares than comments, the amount of engagement that's happening on that ad is outstanding, and you will pay next to zero for it because Facebook loves you, right? So Andy, maybe you can go into some of the examples that we have for unicorn ads. And we built this library. I have 150 unicorn ads that when we launch a client, we go, well, how does this client line up with any of these ads? Okay, let's start with this. And let's use, so we always launch with 2 unicorn ads. And then we use our copy frameworks and the other stuff that we've leveraged for other tests. So Andy, you can roll them through this, and then we're going to give them some homework on this.
Absolutely. So some example ads. These are programs or coaching programs or products and that sort of thing. So here's just a few examples. Have a look at how many shares are going on here. It's just a very simple example.
And by the way, the minimum amount of shares that could happen to qualify was 20. So you can see it's 52 on this one and 48 comments.
Yeah, exactly. So is your dojo struggling to book classes, keep students, and build a reputation? Now it's more difficult than ever to build a successful martial arts class business. You need a dojo hero to come in and save the day. This platform was developed to help save blah, blah, blah. And I can read it through, but that's just a really good example of an ad that was working very well.
And here's the brilliant thing. If somebody's got a good copywriter, they probably wrote some other pretty good ads. So go into Facebook ad library and put the page in and see what else they've written, right? But just screen capturing this, you can see this is probably screen captured off my phone. Look at it. It looks like it was off my phone, right? So I just screenshot it. And what I did, I don't know if any of you guys have Teams, but you can even do this with your friends, right? Or your family, is I paid everybody at Easter time $5 per Easter egg that they could find me. So I had my whole team geeking out the entire weekend, looking at their feeds, trying to screen capture unicorn ads, which I called Easter eggs at the time, right? And I paid them $5 each. So I got 100 of them, right? So, okay, I paid $5,000. Okay, well, in the grand scheme of things, that's not a lot for an agency. Maybe you don't want to pay them $5,000, but I think you get the point. Is you can leverage your own feed and leverage friends and family's feed and say, look, I would really like it if you could screenshot me anything that has more than 20 shares and has more shares than comments and send it over to me. I'll love you forever, and build your own unicorn ad library. It just cuts the corner tremendously when you're, oh, was it? Yeah, sorry. It was $500. Yeah. I remember at the time being like $500. Lauren said, no, your math's off. You're right. It was 5 times 100. So I paid $500 to get all of these ads. I mean, think about the amount of research it would take to get that. Right. It was nothing for me. And my team really didn't care about the money. I mean, they were getting like, $40, $50 each. Right. But it became a game, right, to find unicorn ads. So thank you for correcting me on that. It wasn't 5,000, it was 500. It was a drop in the bucket.
Here's another one. Again, look at this particular one. Free challenge. You can see the copy is in here. It's down here. But it's in the image itself, okay? Again, a lot more shares and comments going on here. So how to launch a brand new. So who, if anyone remembers, what sort of copy framework does this fit into? That's just a test to see if you've been paying attention.
Oh, I don't know if they were paying that close attention, right? But what we'll do with these unicorn ads, just to be clear, is we don't know if it's the copy, if it's the image, if it's the title on the image, if it's the sub headline. We don't really know what it is that made it a unicorn, right? So we just tell the client, I need you to go to a gray background and make a funny face that looks like this. Okay, perfect. Right. So we'll copy it as much as possible right from the get-go, and then we'll iterate off of it after the fact, right? Because we don't know what made it work, right? But at least we got a framework.
Exactly. Here's another one. We're going to come to some physical products then. Here's this one. And again, look at that, 703 shares. And here's the copy. Nothing beats the feeling of being able to help someone, whether it's a family member, friend, or business owner. Knowing how to solve problems and how help people move forward is a task well worth a great income and is extremely fulfilling. We're looking for great leaders who have a natural desire to speak and train others. Doesn't matter, blah, blah, blah. Now you can see it's very straightforward, very straight to the point, but there's empathy going on, that they're reaching out to a type of person. You can't target a character, the character of a person in your targeting. You can't target shy people, extrovert people, introverts, jealous. You can't. It doesn't exist. You have some lifestyle options and things like that, but you have to bring that out into the copy directly.
Yeah. And Lauren said, I'm going to set up a unicorn ads channel on my team Slack. We do a Shark Tank channel for crazy ideas. We pay $50 each if we use it, but this is less intimidating. Love this. Oh yeah. Set up one and say, for the next 2 weeks, I will pay you $5 for each one you find me and you post in here. Watch what happens. You actually have to make them focus on work, because they're all, it's like they get geeked out. They're going through their feed, trying to find them all day long, capturing them. So you should, so I did a time frame. I did like Easter weekend and called them Easter eggs. Right. But, leverage everybody's feeds, right? That's what we did here.
Exactly.
She's writing up the SOP while we're doing this right now.
I love it. Physical product. So for you folks in e-commerce, this is a really good example. 361 shares, 200 comments. If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Okay, they're stealing some authority from Nikola Tesla. Tesla, I should say. I'm beginning a lot of questions who've seen my pyramids. I want to provide some more information. They're not ordinary pieces of decor. They're handmade organite chakra pyramids made of genuine crystals. Again, lots of emoji in here to really reflect what this brand is all about, right? So very, very good. Excuse me. I need to get off Zoom more these days. Very straightforward. Look, this is just what we would call the straight up copy. Stop stressing about pets ruining expensive furniture and protect the house today. I think it would have been better with I forgot to actually get the screenshot with the shares, but there were a lot of shares on this. Protect your house today. Now, we often talk about not using you or your as best as possible, because it's a little bit of a flag that you would get away with it. In this case, they've gone completely compliant, and it's very straight up. Nothing more difficult than that. You'll notice in the examples that we gave in the copywriting examples, the frameworks, they were a mix of long copy or medium copy. We're testing short, long, and medium. What do we define as short? Well, short is somewhere around 4 to 5 sentences. Medium is probably looking at about 20 sentences. And then when you're getting into the long form, you're looking at easily 20 to 30 sentences in all, if not more. The only downside with the long copy is that there's a limit on what you can do on Instagram, which we'll talk about on Thursday. But that's essentially the sort of 3 strains, and this is very straight up. And the final one we got here this is a really good one. Look at how well this is written. We love baseball so much that we wanted to drink from a bat. It's just like such an innovation sort of thing. And they're clearly calling out their dugout mugs. Okay, that's the name of the brand. Made in North America. That's an important one because people are very patriotic about where the products are made. They're not shipped from some sweatshop in China, some drop ship sort of thing. Made in America, lifetime warranty. Feel close to the game whilst you're watching from home. Grab one for yourself or for the biggest baseball fans you know. Save 30% using this. So it's direct response, straight up, no messing around. And it's appealing to a particular crowd, right? So with
Yeah,
that,
you want to leverage what you can find, which is why we use this unicorn ad library strategy.
yeah,
And you'd be amazed at all of a sudden how many like cool ways you find of visualizing something or describing something. I think our best unicorn ads were a client we had that sold hidden gun shelves. And so he had these floating shelves that you could have in your living room with a picture on top of it or whatever. And you phone controlled it by an app, and you click the button and it dropped down, and then your like 9mm were inside of it. It was like an actual gun safe inside of a floating shelf or whatever, right? If you can create a visual around something or a feeling around something that people just go, holy shit, that's cool. And they'll share it, right? Maybe it's like really the crystal one is just how pretty the crystals are. And the quote from Nikola Tesla is what's making that share, right? Yeah. And you can think of the avatars as sharing it, going like, hey ladies, these look so cool, or like whatever, right? If you can create that shareability around it, however you're going to structure that, your ad costs go to like nothing. I mean, we set our cost per click goal at $3. You start running unicorn ads, they go 2, 1, 80 cents, right? Because they're getting so much love from the algorithm because of the engagement that's happening on the ads. But how do you come up with those ideas? Well, make your own library, right? And then leverage off of that library. So, today, and I'm going to address one more question and then I'm going to give homework. Natalie's question is, once you find the best performing ad copy ad, do you stop using Facebook's algorithm and campaign budget optimization and just put a separate budget for that specific ad copy? Yeah, we'll do that. Where once we find it, we'll isolate it. And in some cases, even when we're testing, Facebook will force more budget into one of the variations than we want and not give us enough statistical relevance because they're favoring one too much. So we'll actually split it out if that happens and run them in their own to force Facebook to do what we want, which is test our specific piece. But yeah, we isolate it out once we figure it out, and we go from there, and we don't have multiple variations of the ads in there once we've navigated the waters and figured it out. As far as homework is concerned for you guys this week, what we want to challenge you to do is take your product or service and take 3 of our copy frameworks and write about your product or service using 3 different copy frameworks. And then we want you to create your own unicorn ad library and find us at least 5 unicorn ads that you have put inside of yours from your feed or your team's feeds or whatever else over the next week. This is going to dramatically help you improve your messaging in your ads, leveraging proven copy frameworks and what's already working in the marketplace.
Exactly. Yeah. Great stuff. Very easy, folks. We didn't make it difficult for you.
No, we tried to give you as much real tangible stuff to use today between our frameworks, Hemingway app, unicorn ad library, metrics you should look for. This to me is the fun stuff. Like, I actually like creating ads. My agency is too large for me now to be creating ads all the time, but I actually love creating ads. It's the funnest part, in my opinion, so this is all about the fun part of what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I saw this one today, a client's coming in, Andy, and it had 2 oranges in the image. I'm going to show you that later. Had just 2 oranges with 2 earrings piercing the oranges, like nipple rings, right? And it said something along the lines of like, tired of doing things that everyone else is doing because you think it's going to be cool, blah, 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 blah. And I laughed out loud when I saw the ad. I thought, whoever did that is a freaking genius, because visually I was like, what the... Right. And it was these 2 oranges with nipple piercings in them. And I at that point I had to read it. Right. That's where you grab great ads. And you go, okay, how do we connect this here to this here? Because it's already proven, right? There's something about it that's already resonating.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Do we have I'm sure we have some questions as well, don't we? I can see sort of messages coming up.
We have two questions and we have about 8 minutes left. So
Good.
I think we can get to those. So Mahai is asking, because you've mentioned that budgets are smaller in Europe. And so just wondering how much smaller are
Okay.
budgets and costs in Europe?
So the UK is quite expensive in mainland Europe, in smaller countries like France. Well, they're not small countries, still 60 million or so people, but they tend to be about 50% cheaper in Europe, mainland Europe, I would say. UK and Ireland still quite competitive, not as much as the US. I would say Australia is about the same. Australia and New Zealand is about on the same par in terms of CPC, so click costs, to the UK, Ireland. So certainly mainland Europe, I don't know, like Slovakia, smaller countries and all the rest of it. But of course, the audiences are smaller. So the challenge in Europe, generally speaking, is because the audiences are smaller, and we've had clients, for example, in the UK that are marketing to English-speaking people in mainland Europe. For example, there are about 1 million people from the UK that live in Spain because the weather's just so horrible, generally speaking. Not at the moment, but in the UK it is. But there, the challenge is that as your market gets smaller, yes, your CPCs are lower, but you have to cycle through a lot more creative. So if you're doing, for example, if you're targeting, let's say, Vienna, so I don't know what the population of Vienna is, let's say it's 4 million people, and you've got a very specific offer on whatever for people in Vienna, what you're going to find is that the ads burn out more frequently. If you're targeting a metro area around Detroit or something, you're going to find that the ads run out. They don't have as long a life as they do. So what you're forced to do is create even more variations on an existing theme with different images or different videos in order to not saturate your message too much. With that said, a little bit of frequency isn't bad. Frequency in marketing works, but as long as it doesn't get too much. It's very difficult to find an ad that will last forever. There are a few ones out there that do make it, but it's generally very difficult to achieve that. In answer to your question, look at about 50% and even lower in smaller competitive countries like, for example, Norway, the Netherlands. Netherlands is actually quite expensive, but you certainly will find lower costs, about 50%.
Great. And then I have a question from Jennifer. She says, we get about 5,000 visitors per month to our website / landing pages, mostly through email campaigns. Is that enough visitors to run retargeting ads? And what would the budget look like to retarget 5,000 visitors? Their audience is fairly small. They get a list of licensed agents and their information from public records, from state insurance departments, maybe 150,000 total contacts.
Okay.
My short answer would be yes. And I would say you could probably do it for about $10.
$10 a day. Yeah, something like that, Jennifer. Yeah. It's not, I don't think you need to spend more than that, because otherwise your frequency goes up a lot, and you'll be showing the ad over and over and over again. What you need to be concentrating. And Jennifer, I think you wrote into Slack, didn't you? From the insurance. This was in Utah, is that right? Yep. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So
Yeah.
Go ahead, Aaron.
No, go ahead. Finish what you're going to say.
No, I was going to basically say what you really need to focus on there, Jennifer, is to make sure that you do that top of funnel stuff that I mentioned. I think I mentioned to you is that you need to start separating and differentiating yourself directly with the top of funnel content, and then on the cold stuff, you can obviously retarget, which is the hot, your bottom of funnel. You can certainly retarget with 5,000. That's pretty good. And you should do that. You just may need a few more iterations around ads. And that's where a lot of creativity comes in around, for example, like Aaron was referring to the 2 oranges and that's where you need to start thinking a little bit more out of the box to also separate your brand from the rest of the pack, so to speak. Does that make sense? Yeah, cool.
Yeah, Nicholas's question is a great question, so I want to answer it real quick. He said, does this work for IG? I don't think on IG it shows shares, just shows comments. or do we just take the Facebook unicorn ads and apply them to IG? We took the Facebook ones and applied them to IG. I haven't figured out how I would define a unicorn ad in IG because it's all comment based, right? But when we take them and we overlap them into IG, it works exactly the same.
Works well. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, cool.
And Victoria is clarifying that these frameworks shown today is primarily BOFU ads, so mainly for hot or warm leads. So
correct.
Would be used mainly for retargeting. Okay.
Yeah, it's used for, and I want to clarify this. We talked about manufacturing fame where we've got cold bucket, warm bucket, offer bucket, retarget bucket, right? So these are mostly your offer bucket ads. So when you say retargeting, right? If you're running the cold, warm offer, yes, you would retarget the cold and the warm into these frameworks. But when we launch with a client, we launch with these frameworks going directly at the audience's cold that we expect to convert, because oftentimes the client hasn't had enough time to do our cold and our warm yet so that we can funnel through the cold, the warm into the offer. So we're using them both as our cold direct response ads, and we're using them for retargeting once we've got the cold and the warm set up that we can drive them down.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we're, typically we'll use, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in detail on retargeting on Thursday. But essentially what you want to be able to do is test using these frameworks, Victoria, use these frameworks to go straight out, as Aaron just said, just go straight to a cold interest or a lookalike audience. And we'll talk about those on Thursday a little bit more. So it'll give you a little bit more context, but yeah, it's direct response. The goal is get a response, and the response is a 1% click-through rate initially. If you get 0.5, then it's obviously not working. You're going to keep the ads that are doing better than not so well. Okay.
All right. And our last comment is, why are unicorn shares versus comments? How should we factor in each metrics like length of time, ad running, etc.?
I'm not sure I understand the second part of the question. It's just that when we talk to our rep, they won't publicize this anywhere, but there's an internal scoring system on your ads. And from what we've been sort of told under the radar, you essentially get 50 points for a share, 10 points for a comment, and 1 point for a like. So that means that shares are weighted significantly higher than anything else, because that means engagement is happening, user experience is good, so on and so forth. So we could have chosen a whole bunch of different metrics of how we ultimately defined unicorns, but we said if we could find one with more shares than comments, which would mean it literally is resonating with our avatar at the highest level inside of the dashboard, then it would give us the most leverage possible to have internal scoring look at us favorably, lower our ad costs, and obviously get way more organic reach inside of our ads, right? So that's ultimately why we chose that. Yep, Malcolm, correct. Yeah, you summarized it correct in the comments there, Malcolm. And at first I was like, man, how the hell are we going to find ads with more shares than comments? That's not going to exist. Guess what? They do. If you start looking, takes you a little while to find them, but they're there.
They're definitely there. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, this was fantastic again today. I'm running out of adjectives to use to describe how super these sessions are, and how well attended they are, and how we have a captive audience. No one leaves. So it's so great. Another one today. This recording is going to be available in just a few hours. We're going to have it up. We'll have a copy of the slide deck. We'll have any other resources that they might have mentioned today. I didn't make note of them, but if there's anything, we're going to have it, and it's going to be up. And we're going to be back here on Thursday doing it all again with a new topic. Same group of people presenting it.
Absolutely.
So thank you guys so much for being here. Appreciate your time on a busy Tuesday afternoon or wherever you are in the world. And we'll see you Thursday.
Absolutely.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.